we did to help faculty try new things. So I would call it that way. And it was called the Innovative Pedagogy Fellowship, and applications were solicited from across campus for a summer program we have. It's a shortened semester, and I won't get into the details of this thing called Arch, but faculty who taught in Arch were encouraged to submit an application to be an innovative pedagogy fellow, and John is on with me as one of those fellows. And 19 faculty were funded to incorporate one or more of the following, what we call innovative approaches. I know they've been around a long time and they probably aren't innovative to many people, but if faculty aren't doing them, then they're innovative to them. And we wanted them to try some new things. So one was flipped classroom, active learning, gameful learning, which I think is less common, and we just are, crazy about it. Augmented and virtual reality, we have an immersive environment, and that's been kind of fun to work with. And role-playing, personalized learning. The previous session on cases and having students design cases, I'm so excited to share that with some of the faculty that were using cases in a different way. And then just the goal was to increase hands-on learning. Next slide. So the way we organized it was to have to give the faculty content. So, what we know about professional development is it should be job embedded, ongoing, and on site. And so that's what we did. And there were content sessions. There were 4 of us that were coaches, and so we were the ones providing the content. We had just an introduction. I provided an assessment overview, starting with the end in mind, but also then all of the coaches were available to work with faculty on their questions about how to actually implement a change. So there would be there was an assessment overview, and then we had other sessions built in that were coaching sessions. Bring your project, bring your problem. The coaches will be there. We want you to make progress on it, ask questions, talk to each other. That first picture above was faculty at one of those sessions. So then another required set. So the required sessions were, we want you to learn about what these different things are, whether you're using it or not. Let's make sure you know about it. So flipping the classroom and active learning. And then we had a session on inclusive practices, really being mindful of DEI and inclusion and all of that. And I think they were very well received. John could say something about that if he wants. Okay, next slide. I'm running out of time already. So this is how it broke down. We ended up with 5 what I would call groups or cohorts. So this is the number of faculty that participated in each pedagogical approach, which I just thought might be interesting to you. Next slide. I think this is really important. Faculty were very, very positive about their experience. They felt that they were successful in implementing it. The changes they made, the expectations for their students were realized. They're likely to take some of what they learned into other courses. The summer courses are smaller, but they explode in the semester, and so that's really good news. And it affected their overall teaching, which we think is really good, especially because this was something they were trying for the first time. It was new, and it's hard to be successful when something's new. Next slide, please. And this is just some faculty reflections. I won't read them, except for the first one. I'll just say that per one of the previous presenters, oh yes, it was about students learning, self-reflection on their learning. They hated that this flipped classroom happened, and they didn't feel that they learned, except the professor has evidence that last year's students didn't learn as much as this year's, and he thinks it's because it's harder to do active learning than to just listen to a lecture, but we know the evidence says that they learn more when they're actively learning. And so there's administrators need to be involved in these kinds of changes, because you can't penalize faculty for doing something that students don't like when it's in their interest. So I think that's a whole other conversation. But faculty reported positive things for their students and that they're going to continue doing it. Next slide. I think that might be it for me. Oh, and these were the schools, and these were our so these were the larger classes in the summer. So I just wanted to show you kind of what for this context. But I think I asked John, for example, he's one of the flipped classrooms, and he thought that what he's going to present to you could go for up to 60 students. There's another faculty member who was like, I could do it at 50 students. So I think there's ways to make it higher, but people are going to use it again, and that's what's great. Okay, that's it. That's it for, oh, that's the only last thing I'll say is that it was yes, with modifications, like this is the percent that would use it again. And the modifications, the students, that's what we asked the students, and the students gave fantastic suggestions to faculty. And again, I think it's a really positive response because it's the thing faculty did for the first time. And these are very high numbers, even if it's with modifications. So that's me. I'm going to turn it over to John. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Amy Seversky. I'm a learning assessment specialist. I'm turning it over to John Sturman, who is a lecturer in computer science, and he's got a great story to share.
Just before thanks, you Amy. Do that, Amy, can you just explain what you mean by additive grading?
Sure. So additive grading also could be called gameful grading, where students can achieve grades in a variety of ways. So they have paths to grading. So there's a variety of assignments worth different points. So not every student is doing the same thing to get their grade. They are choosing which assignments, and some assignments are required. Everyone has to do them. And some assignments are, I'm going to choose this path, and here's the points for that path. So it's like instead of starting with an A and seeing where you go down, and you're starting with 0 and you're building your grades. It is students love it. And I didn't share, I thought there was a student slide in here about, oh yeah, the students said use this again. But I didn't share the student slide about, the students also mentioned in the additive grading, when the data on that alone is that students found that it helped them manage their work-life balance, their course load balance, and it reduces stress because they control what grade they get. And one faculty member that we worked with on this, which wasn't in this iteration, it was a previous set of work, she had 60 students in 2 courses, and she used additive grade. She reorganized her course around additive grading, called it gameful grading, and the students found it really helpful to balancing. And they did, we had a control group, and the students in the additive grading, there were fewer failures and higher grades than in the other course. Oh, what I wanted to say about it was, she also said, if you finish the first unit, you get a D, you can be done. You don't have to do anything else in this class. You get your D if that's all you want, and then you leave. You want a higher grade, you stick around and do more things. So I'm happy to, connect with people after this about additive grading. I think it's really positive, and you can do it in a lot of different classes. And I'll turn it over to John. Does that answer your question? You're muted.
One other quick thing. Did you find out what constraints affected the professors that didn't change their overall approach, that answered the survey by saying, not going to change my overall approach?
There weren't so many. And B, I haven't finished analyzing all that data. I just got started on it for this. In talking to a couple of the faculty members, they did not embrace a very, they weren't doing enough really to make a difference as part of it. Like they used what I would call a tiny tweak, and that tweak wasn't enough to get the kind of change that you might want. You had to do more than that, but they didn't want to do more than that. So
okay,
they got what they got. But okay, I'll know more when I dig into the data more.
Great, thanks. John?
Okay, it's all me now. So I'm a lecturer in the computer science department in the School of Science at RPI. I teach a course called Software Design and Documentation. I've been teaching for more than 20 years, and I inherited the course from someone else. So it says here, I've been taught continually since before 1990. I've asked people who've been here that long, when did it start? No one knows. So the course goes back a long time. At this point in the evolution of this course, it was always been a project course, but the students are broken into teams and spend the semester building a software project and using the parameters of the project, going through a Scrum software design lifecycle framework. They learn a whole lot of concepts and about documentation and design. Up until innovative pedagogy workshops. The class is delivered in a standard lectured format, and I talk about different topics, and then I'd say, okay, now go home, and work with your teams and, fulfill on these assignments. And all the assignments went towards specific submissions that were collection of deliverables. And so the lectures and the stuff we did in class was all setting them up to do work at home, which was, the development, writing, documentation, etc. So one of the things that I did out of this initiative is I flipped the class. So, obviously in a flipped class, all the lectures are recorded, and then basically I provide the lectures at the appropriate time in the ways that we do it. And so I have a website, and we use an LMS and like that. So that freed up a lot of class time that allowed me to do more interaction. So we did a lot more hands-on stuff. We did workshops. I would do simulations and other kind of exercises. I just walked out of my class where we're doing user interface testing. And so teams are paired up and go and sit with each other, and they go through user interface testing process. And the feedback I've gotten from that has been awesome. But those are the kinds of things we've been using this for. And what I've found is that the projects themselves had a much higher quality. They were much more complete. The documentation that they provided in their submissions was, very superior. Many of it really excellent. I always grab an example or two that to show to other classes. I had lots and lots and lots of examples to bring to future semesters. And then lastly is that everybody's more engaged, including myself. The students were much more engaged. I was more engaged. My teaching team was more engaged. And you could tell because the students were not buried in their laptops looking at email or Facebook or, whatever else they're looking at, and interacting and listening, answering questions, etc. So I'm very happy about that. I'll talk more about our specific results later. So, this obviously we're talking about assessment here, and the way we used to assess is I have a team of teaching assistants and undergraduate mentors that do a lot of they read through the team's documentation, and then we grade it. And that's how we've always done it, where, all the grading except for one particular metric was done by my team. And so, the only way that students had any role in grading was evaluating their team members. And one of the first assignments I say is, come up with some metrics that you can score your team members at the end of the semester. And it was really to get teams to motivate individuals to work well with those teams. And so students didn't see other projects much. And 50 students in a class was as much as we could handle. And, there was just no way out of it. And, so, it used up everything we had and more. So now, in this new version of the class, there's a larger participation among peers. So yes, we're still doing instructor grading, but now there's a lot more peer evaluation. So one place we're doing it is with presentations. And so one of the requirements of the class is that students record a technical presentation about a particular topic, a design pattern, which is assigned to them. We used to grade it. We used to do it in class, and the TAs and I would fill out a little questionnaire. Now, what we do is that the teams that pairs of presenters work in pods, and they grade each other that way. Another piece is teams review other teams' deliverables. And so that students get a chance to see a lot more work that comes out of the class, which just helps. Now, as a result of the initiative that we did, that Amy talked about in the spring, over the summer during the Arch, I piloted this reimagined class with 40 students in a section. And that worked really well. Now, I currently have 60 students in each section with 2 sections. And so we haven't had a problem where anyone's going, I can't get it done. If anything, we're getting it done quicker. We're getting all the evaluations done quicker because of all the enhancements we've done. And so as far as I'm concerned, this really shows how this can scale. And it's, I don't know if we can get, I'm not going to try to get bigger necessarily, but 60 students in a room that's a lot. We don't have, there's some classrooms here, there's many classrooms on campus that can't even accommodate that many students. So one of the problems I have is getting a good room for future semesters. That's a good problem to have as far as I'm concerned. So other kinds of peer assessments we did, we've done a few exercises with something called mob programming, where we have, one keyboard and one monitor, and then a driver. So one student will be typing, and the rest of the team are navigators. And this is modeled after something called pair programming, where 2 developers will work on the same problem. So you have 4 sets of eyes and 2 brains focused on a screen, and one person types, the other person says, hey, type this, type that. And so mob programming, instead of one person giving the input, you've got a whole bunch of people, and we worked in teams of 10. And the idea is that, everybody participates, and it gets a lot more participation. And then the driver switches out every 5-10 minutes, something like that, depending on the exercise. Another thing we do is that before a deliverable is due, I have teams pair up and share their deliverables with each other. And they're checking for clarity. Is what they wrote, does it communicate? Is it the quality? Is it professional quality? Did the team provide everything that the class was asking for? And that's been very effective, and it completely increases the quality of what the students are submitting. And then the last piece is, peer grading. And as I mentioned, that students will score their recorded presentations, and paired with that, they're scoring a mob programming facilitation that each set of presenters would do. And that was 10% of the grade. And then also students are scoring themselves as to their group participation. This is a carryover. But you can see that we've really increased that kind of assessment. The submissions are broken into 5 groups. And my instructor team includes graduate teaching assistants, undergraduate mentors, and then and they do most of the original, they do the initial assessment, reading through the stuff, and then I look over everything they did and make sure comments are consistent, and that the TAs and the mentors scored the way that I would think it should be scored. And so I'm bringing in that consistency. And so in terms of the life cycle of the project, we get 5 submissions. And sprint 1 really included, what's your vision, and a product overview and a development overview and that kind of thing. Sprint 4 dives deeper and goes into what actually is going to be in the software. I call this developer instructions, and includes deployment diagrams and requirements and user stories and use cases and those kinds of things that developers use to actually frame and form the product. Then we have interim release, and we're a week away from that in my class right now. The interim release is a sort of a midpoint. What if teams have promised that they're going to get something done, and so we're seeing this as the first proof of functionality. Here we also get more documentation in terms of UML diagrams, etc. And then lastly, they do interface testing as part of this. Beta release is really just that. Here we're initializing beta testing for a full set of features. The product may not be perfect, but we'll figure out the bugs and like that. And then lastly, there's a final release where students actually deliver their product. And so I want to now go to talk about how my team has seen it. So Dong has, I have a typo here, sorry about that. Dong has taken the class in the old format, he mentored in the old format, and then he mentored over the summer in the new format. And I won't read this whole thing, but he said that, that he was a lot more positive during the summer after the initiative than before, a lot more positive. He said that the lectures were long and students tuned out. And, so that having in-class activities that were fun and pretty fun, and I make it fun, and giving the students time during the class to collaborate really made a difference. And, what he said, being a mentor in summer was an incredible experience, allowed me to contribute more meaningfully to the class, fostering a supportive and joyful environment. Adazaz, he's a graduate student, he's a PhD candidate. He's taught with me, I think this is his fourth semester this semester, which included 2 semesters before we revamped the class and as well as the previous summer. He said that the interaction between students and my team was much lower because it really depended on the student coming out and saying, yes, I'm interested, here's a question I have. But because of the way the format's changed, we as a team are spending a lot more time interacting with individual projects, teams, students. And so the dynamics have really changed, is what he's saying. The increased collaborative tasks have increased student responsiveness to the lecture materials. The sessions are more interactive, allow a lot more feedback to be sent to students from both the team and from peers. And so, and this resulted in really much higher quality work. As I was preparing to come in here, Adidas is sitting in my class right now, running the class. He said, it made our job so much easier, and his job as a grader and a TA, because everything was, because of all the work that and the interaction that we've had with students in the class earlier, that the quality of the submission is so much better, so it was much easier to grade. For me, I've had so much more fun delivering this class. I've always loved delivering this class, but now it's not on me to be the entertainer, which sort of is how I go. It was great for me to be able to have a lot more opportunity to engage directly with students and groups and look at their projects and participate in the activities they're doing to form their projects. My coaching of students and groups became a lot more effective just because of that. Generally, when I'm grading something, that's how I'm giving them feedback. And so having lots of time in class, I can give them a lot better feedback. They're getting more out of it. And then lastly, that the rest of my team, and it changes semester to semester, of course, they have a much better handle on what I'm looking for from the students. And so they were really empowered to be able to coach the students better. And so we resulted in higher quality and more complete evaluations. And so my takeaway is that, flipping the classroom was probably the best thing I ever did for this course. And that by freeing up that class time, I really see I'm able to provide the value of the class more effectively and easier, and with more joy and fun and all that. And adding in the alternate assessment methods really freed up my team. And as I said, Adazaz said his job got a lot easier. So that allowed us to focus on more of what the students really needed, as opposed to the topics from the lecture, how to really apply all that information. So the course has really evolved into what I consider a really, really excellent experience for both the students and the instructors. The last slide I have is just, just contact us. Amy and I have worked together, and so here's our information. I'm happy to make this presentation available to you. And I'd like to open it up to anybody if you have any questions for us, please.
As we thank you, Amy and John, as we wait for other questions to come from people, if there are any. I'm curious about the model that you used this summer program, short, intensive, here's what I would like to work on. Did people volunteer for that? How did they end up being part? John, how did you end up being part of that?
So in terms of, are you talking about the ARCH, or are you talking about the initiative, the Innovative Pedagogy Initiative?
What Amy shared with us from, you came together in the summer, you learned some content about different alternatives.
Oh, yes. That was in the spring, and we were preparing. Right. That was in the spring, and we were preparing for the summer semester. And the summer ARCH is a shortened semester. Instead of 14 weeks, it's 12 weeks. And it's, really geared for juniors to have a fuller experience. And students can do a bunch of different things. But basically, in 12 weeks, we're getting done what we got done in 14 weeks. The sessions are a little longer, so the time is equivalent. A thing went out to everybody in the school, hey, who's interested in participating in this? And I definitely was, because I thought I participated in a symposium that we did previously. I guess it was the previous spring, where we went over gameful and immersive technologies. And it was really fun, and I learned a lot, and I thought this would be a terrific thing to add to my course. And I work closely with another professor in computer science who also had a similar experience, and he flipped his classroom as well. I don't know if he had as much success as I did, but I don't know for sure. Amy, you could speak to that better.
He did it a little differently, and I think he had more ideas of how to change it. Somebody asked if you would flip to the contact slide again. And I just wanted to set one more context. We're at a tech school, Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute. And so as John said, we had a symposium. We want faculty to try different things. And we had a lot of faculty in the arts and sciences school that were doing really innovative things. But the mantra at RPI is, if it doesn't work in science, it ain't happening. So we've been really gratified that's why I'm so excited that we had members of the School of Science and the School of Engineering, which are harder lifts sometimes to try new things. And so the fact that we have engineering faculty and computer science and biology doing these approaches and having it be successful, that's to me fantastic. It's really, because it's just harder work. It's a harder lift to get the engineering and science faculty to try those things. So we're pretty excited, and I'm really excited by what John did and how it turned out for him.